Hey, Gene.
Hey, Bill.
Love those technical difficulties, man.
Well, the last technical difficulty is one that couldn't be helped. It was a huge outage, right?
Yes. So affecting everybody. So we finally, the platforms are coming back up. AWS, if you didn't know, had a big outage today. If you're wondering why you can't get on your favorite platforms or whatever, it affected thousands of businesses actually. So, but we're back online and streaming live here on LinkedIn. This is our Bioactive Nexus podcast, and today is a Bioactive Insight episode. And so it's been a little bit of time, but we're going to be back on Thursday too for a special bioactive breakdown. We'll talk about that at the end. But today, Gene's going to give us an update on his recent trip to China and for the Timepie Wellness Summit. And I'm going to do give an update on the latest evolution of NutriSelect Science Accelerator program. So 2.0. Anyway, those are our two topics today to get us caught up. So, Gene, we'll start with you, man. So, you had a 2-week trip to China. It looked pretty cool.
It was 1 day short of 2 weeks, total of 13 days, including travel time. And it was a pretty interesting experience. First of all, it was the first time I'd ever been to China. And so there was a lot of interesting stuff, not related to the summit, but worth mentioning is that if anybody travels and you stay at a hotel, and then there'll be some kind of a breakfast buffet or something of that nature, and it's generally fairly limited. They have a few different items. We stayed at a hotel, and I was floored by the huge amount of food offered. They had both Western food, Eastern food, all kinds of stuff. After the first day, every day thereafter, I did Chinese breakfast that had vegetables and all kinds of stuff.
You're making me hungry, man.
It was something else, but it was interesting. We the Timepie Longevity Summit was really, as the name suggests, about longevity, about living longer, healthier lives. And we had 2 different venues that we were at. And the first venue was at one of the local universities, and then the second venue was actually at the hotel I was staying at, and it was a much larger venue, which was great because some events had like over 1,000 people attending. Like one of my talks had that number of people in it. It was something else. But we had a lot of interesting speakers, people from different universities, a lot of different doctors, some people who just did sort of biohacking and were really good at it and shared their insights. And as I looked at everything and I said, well, what is kind of the take-home message here? What is something that is very, very common that you're seeing as a kind of a thread throughout? Because different people presented different things. They would talk about diet. They would talk about nutraceuticals. They would talk about drugs. They would talk about medical implants where you could implant different things, even chips to monitor your body and see how things are going. So they talked about many different types of things. And they had clinics there. Sanying Xu and I went to, he's the president of Nutriland, even went to one of these clinics locally, and we're in a barometric chamber, and we did altitude training, and I was even in a one of these devices where you go in and it can lower the temperature to like some ridiculous number, like 140 Celsius, negative. and so I went in one of those. I tried a lot of different things. It was quite interesting. But as I went through again, I said, when we talk about what the researchers were finding out, and all these different universities from different countries, there were different things. But one thing that kept popping up consistently is not new to the dietary supplement industry, and that is inflammaging. The role that inflammation plays in human health and wellness. So inflammation was the discussion about inflammation with regard to causing you to age more quickly, impacting different types of disease states, and the ability through different biohacking techniques to reduce that inflammation, thereby letting you have a healthier life and a longer life. And there was a lot of different ways people were doing it. Some ways had to do with diet, changes in diet, reducing the junk food, reducing the intake of a lot of things like, let's say, oxidized oils, things like sugars, things like just junky food, that increases your inflammatory load, which we've already which we already knew had that effect. And then, of course, there was the discussion of nutraceuticals and the role they can play. And certainly, and we've talked about that before on some of our shows. And some of the nutraceuticals, some common ones like turmeric and its curcuminoids, and things like boswellia, and even things like resveratrol, and many, many others. Some of the nutrient ones, things like beta carotene or alpha lipoic acid. All of these different kinds of agents, many of which are both antioxidants as well as anti-inflammatory agents. That was the thread that kept running through things. And what was interesting is even after the Timepie Longevity Summit was over, and it was the next day, and Sun Ying and I went out, he took me to the TCM market. So traditional Chinese medicine remedies market.
I bet that was cool.
This thing was huge. I can't even tell you how big it was. It felt like it was about a mile square. Probably was, probably less. But you walk out and there's all these outside booths. And you see all kinds of barrels and baskets of traditional Chinese herbs and other remedies. Because, of course, traditional Chinese medicine would use animal parts too. Things like, deer horn and et cetera, et cetera. And they'd use all these different materials. And it was fascinating most of the time I'm used to seeing a lot of these herbs as a standardized powder. I'm looking at the C of A, I'm examining it from that standpoint. And here they have just the actual, raw form of these herbs that you see. And it was fascinating. We checked out so many different areas, looked at so many different types of herbs. And then when they had an inside area as well, which was the higher end material that cost more money, and it was air conditioned, which was nice. and we went up escalators to like 5 different levels, all of them that had extensive supplies of these different herbs. And one of the things that I found really interesting was a number of these herbs, in and of themselves, I knew from my background, also had anti-inflammatory effects and other effects too. But it's kind of interesting. So here's something that's been in use for thousands of years. That was used as a whole system of medicine, health and wellness for the Chinese people and other cultures as well. And here you have today the modern scientific medical approach to longevity and wellness. And what are you doing? You're using some of these same things, to help you live long and to help you have a healthier life. And I thought that was really, really fascinating. And one of the things is it's really hard when you go to China. You think of Chinese food, you think of American Chinese food. But the actual Chinese food there was different. And one thing that was common is it was hard to have a meal that didn't have vegetables.
It's the same for Mexico. Yeah, people have Mexican or Tex-Mex in the U.S. is nothing like what it is here in Mexico.
A lot of vegetables. A lot of those vegetables I recognized and knew they had compounds in them that were anti-inflammatory as well as antioxidant. And I think that's one of the things that, to me, that was sort of the big take-home message from this. Yes, living long and living healthy is a multifaceted approach that should be taken. But if you can look at your diet, your lifestyle, and your nutraceuticals as things that can help reduce inflammation. And to be clear, we have normal inflammation that happens in our body that's part of the immune system. I'm talking about excessive amounts of chronic inflammation that causes problems. And so the use of some general anti-inflammatory compounds that are natural aren't going to stop your body from having its natural immune effect. It's more of a an approach when you have something like osteoarthritis or one of these kinds of problems where you just have sort of uncontrolled, constant inflammation.
Right.
And
right.
so to me, that was the real interesting thing. Now, as an aside, having nothing to do with anything specifically, but just kind of interesting is, I told you about this, but our listeners might get a kick out of this. You know, the Chinese people, who were very, very nice, clearly have a penchant for taking photographs, you know, and they like to take photographs with people. And I found out that you get an older professorial looking guy who's speaking. Oh, that is worthy of taking a picture.
You're a celebrity, man.
I lost count, and like I'm not I'm not Brad Pitt or somebody. Nobody, people don't. I'm not famous like that. But oh my God, I felt like it there, because after the 75th person, I lost count of how many people wanted pictures with me to do that. So that was interesting. One other thing, while I was there, we went to we were in Shanghai for the conference, and then we went to Guangzhou, which was where our Nutriland facility was. And I was really excited to see that one whole weather temperature controlled warehouse that we had was, again, all of these herbs, all of these raw herbs that we had.
Right.
And it was fascinating to see all this stuff and go through the process, see how we do extraction, see how the quality control. There was a level of quality control there that I've actually never seen anywhere in our industry, where you're wearing stuff that looks like you're wearing spacesuits to go into the areas that are doing some of the testing and what have you. But anyway, that was fascinating.
That's
we're
cool.
going to produce a video out of that, because I took people on a tour of that and we videoed that. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, I got a couple comments or questions for you there to kind of build on that. So what, after you went to this longevity summit or wellness summit or whatever, so, when we think about it in terms of health tech space or whatever, we think about it in terms of the US or something, and what we see happening here. But was this a big summit? And do you feel that, I think China has always had a focus on longevity and wellness. If you go
absolutely,
if you go back to even from a spiritual practice with the Tao Te Ching and Lao Tzu, okay, this goes back 2,500 years, but TCM's been around for thousands of years. And I know as I used to head up our Chinese regulatory stuff with Sanofi, but there was when the Chinese put together their regulatory infrastructure, they decided to keep traditional Chinese medicine as a part of the regulatory infrastructure, and there was it was a big pushback from some folks within China, some doctors and things like that, because they felt there wasn't enough science on it or that sort of thing. But culturally, it was really important to the Chinese people, so they kept it within the regulations. And I think you see more and more research happening on these blends and stuff like that. So I bet there was plenty of things that you saw at that market that we probably can't even get in the U.S. here, I'm guessing.
There are. I mean, there were some things, and look, the traditional Chinese medicine, we're seeing a lot of studies that have been done on some of the combinations. We see that. You could go to PubMed and find wonderful things. And then there's some of the things that have just been used a long time and have traditional use. And I don't know if there's any studies, because I've never looked on it. Like, for example, you can buy deer penis there, which you use in, which I use in remedies, presumably for something to do with male sexual health. So there's things like that. And then there's other things like, they got reishi mushroom and other things that have tons of research and studies on them.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I mean, I think that we need to approach it. Even people like you and I who have extensive science background, we also have respect for and consider the cultural use of something that's been around for thousands of years.
Absolutely.
And when people are able to use it and get good results, we can't always use a Western paradigm for assessing it. I mean, we can, but if we look beyond that, we're likely to see some other interesting aspects of a medicine that our culture isn't familiar with. And of course, we are using a lot of traditional Chinese remedies in our industry now.
That's true. And do you think that, you mentioned the biohacking piece of this. It sounds like the center, the clinic you went to with all these different therapies, you see those in the U.S. as well, although it sounds like it's more extensive there.
It is more extensive. The use of AI, the use of biohacking, all of these things are much more prevalent there. You see it just constantly. At least, of course, I was at a conference, and so everybody that I'm seeing are using these kind of things. But I've been to conferences here where I don't see that same level of technology. They do so much there that is absolutely fascinating. And I think that there's a great deal that we here in the United States could learn from our friends and colleagues in China and what they're doing for health and wellness, for what they're doing for longevity, for what they're doing for biohacking. I think there's a great deal that we could learn.
Sure, I agree. Well, that kind of bridges us into the next topic for our podcast today, which is talking about data-driven wellness, right? So, in NutriSelect's mission. So we've talked about NutriSelect in a few different podcasts here and that sort of thing. But I think obviously we're targeting the U.S. market for the rollout next year first. However, because it's the biggest supplement market, but I've had interest from Asia and also Europe to bring. I want to know if we're bringing our platform there. So for me, it kind of makes sense based on what you just talked about. China's number 2, by the way, in terms of supplement market, and China and U.S. make up half of the global supplement market right there. So maybe it makes sense as China be our next market that we go to based on what you were talking about today.
Can I just tell you, when we talk about market, when I was there, they have influencers there like they do here, but the influencers are much more active. They take a much more active role in actually selling. While I was there, one brand that used some of our same Nutrilite materials in their products, they engaged a few different influencers to do live podcasting, and over a period of 7 hours for one product, they did almost $2 million in sales. Wow. American dollars in sales. It was like, wow. So they are definitely big into the use of these kinds of supplements in China, for sure.
Wow, no kidding. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Cool. Well, for those who haven't been following the news with NutriSelect or whatever, let me give a brief update on that. So obviously we have the consumer app that we're rolling out next year. We built the prototype last year, and of course been building the business, building our CRO consortium of partners. We just made another announcement today, by the way, if you saw that, for reputable health joining.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, Kyle's coming into the party, so this is exciting. Yeah, and so I was originally, and that's there's a B2C and there's several B2B avenues for the business itself in terms of the business model. So one of those was, approaching our product brands in our industry, Gene, as you know, and ingredient suppliers, and looking at them as in terms of, and actually that's was something I wasn't going to do until after the app was in the market. But then I realized that it might be kind of cool if we had some product brands on board early on, pre-launch of the app, because then we could start building it'll help enhance our data sets on the back end and help train the engine and make it even stronger, more robust. So that was the vision for that. As soon as I announced that press release, then the same day I got contacted by a big product brand. And then right after that, I got contacted with an ingredient company, a big ingredient company, saying, hey, what about ingredient companies? Is this going to be available to them? So then we brought forward we did even a special podcast episode on the first one, but then we brought in the ingredient companies in that. And I got some good feedback and stuff like that. Full transparency, it's a little early for companies that commit to get on board because we don't have the app in the market yet, even though we've got a lot of development done in the backside in terms of end score and the algorithm, and we can rate particular product brands or ingredients. It was going to be too challenging to do that. So I transitioned this to 2.0 here. So pretty quickly, which is where we're really looking at bringing on, partners strategically, and not in a consultation sort of model, but strategic partners to help us build out those data sets, because that's really of the greatest value for NutriSelect in terms of our data sets and data engine, because the app is only as good as the data sets that we're going to be developing. And then also there's this one thing to build in the foundational data sets of information about ingredients and products, but then in real time when the app's on the market, it's going to evolve, right? Because it's leveraging generative AI. It's going to evolve as a whole platform, and it's going to evolve with the individuals with their particular profile as well, which is pretty exciting. And you know this, Jane. So most of I'm focused on ingredient companies and suppliers because we got Supply Side Global coming up next week. So it's a perfect opportunity to sit down. I've got several meetings planned already. But you know this, that most of the research has been done by ingredient companies traditionally.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, I work for an ingredient company, and we're doing study after study, and then our customers, the brand owners, use that to help support their products' science.
Right. And so because of that, I pivoted a little bit. So I'm opening up the first cohorts for the ingredient companies to 10 companies, because I want to build our data sets as much as possible, and we'll certainly exceed the 5 companies originally planned. And as you know, many of these companies have the ones that I'm talking to, and you'll hear about them later on. But they got tons of research on their ingredients, right? I mean, probably more than is even necessary. And it's the product brands that are leveraging that for their product claims and stuff like that. Now, there is a very small subset of the product supplement market that brands are actually doing clinical research on their product as a whole. But traditionally, that doesn't really happen. And so that's why consumers have a hard time finding. You think about this for a minute. You go to get a product. Let's say you're looking for a product for stress, right? And you look on the label, supplement facts, and you see it's got the KSM 66 ashwagandha, right? So to the consumer, that means nothing. They just see a branded name.
Right.
They don't know the research behind that ingredient. Whatever the product brand is doing in terms of claims, they're driving that. You don't know if it's even the right dosage, right? So they could be leveraging the brand name, and it looks good from a marketing hype position sort of thing, but then they don't put 300 milligrams; they put only 100 milligrams, right?
Right.
So
that's why NutriSelect is really important. It's bridging that gap. It's bridging that you have the scientific validation that's often done by the raw material ingredient companies, and bridging that with this sort of that innovation of the brand owners out there who are coming out with products. And you have NutriSelect AI in the middle helping to bridge that gap so it can tell consumers what's real and what's not, and what their science actually exists.
We're definitely going to bridge that gap. And here's the opportunity for ingredient suppliers. Here's another avenue of visibility directly to the consumer they didn't have before. So if you think about it in the app, and you go to the website, you can see some screenshots of the prototype and the app. But once a consumer finds the product brand they want, and they find, okay, this one's got an N score, gold tier level, 92%. They'll go find that particular product. But if it has an ingredient company's, a company that does a lot of research on their ingredients showing up, that's going to show up in the report to the consumer, and it's going to call that out. It said, oh, this product contains, X branded ingredient that it got an N score certification of this. So this is why it's really, really exciting opportunity for ingredient companies to get on board now, because when we launched the app, those products that we're screening early on, obviously those ingredient companies who contributed their data sets and that sort of thing to help us build that, it's going to show up in those reports to consumers. It's going to drive additional visibility for the ingredient.
It makes so much sense, because then a brand that says, I want to use, let's use the KSM 66
Sure, use that as an example.
You could say, oh, I want to use that ashwagandha in my product. And when you use it in your product, and we've already got those data sets, it's already integrated into NutriSelect. Now you have a situation where it's going to say, oh yeah, this product contains this amount, and here's all the science that's already been in our system. Boom. And so it's actually a great selling point for brand owners, for raw material companies to be part of this, because then they can say, and by the way, when you use this material, we've already got a rating of such and such with NutriSelect.ai.
Right.
And
exactly.
now that's already putting you well on the way to getting a good rating yourself for your finished product.
Exactly. And you said it before, this bridges the gap to the consumer. Again, I think it's the most exciting opportunity for ingredient suppliers, because they have a hard time. This is what I heard from companies I've already been in discussions with, been in business for decades, and they've had issues. Still, they put a lot of research in particular ingredients, but then they still have to fight. The product brands come in and say, well, I can get this over here cheaper. And so they don't see the differentiation there. So this kind of putting it through at an early stage here, get an N-score rating, not only is going to create differentiation for their discussions with product brands, like you said, but also really valuable for the consumers, because then the consumers are going to target those products. For sure, the overall N-score, it's a little different algorithm or rubric for a product brand that gets rated versus an ingredient, right? Because there's other factors in terms of a product brand, in terms of claims, maybe certifications, third-party certifications, something like that, or laboratory testing or whatever. But those factors will come into that. But if you've got a branded gold tier ingredient in your formula, that's going to have a huge impact on getting your product score up on N-score. So,
Yep.
And visibility with consumers. So anyway, that's pretty cool about that. And I think, so again, if you are listening to this and you are an ingredient company, I've reached out to several. I got several meetings booked. I don't have a lot of slots left, because you can't book them back to back, because you can't get from one side of the floor to the other.
That's right.
By the way, did you know
at supply side? Yeah.
At supply side, did you know there's an upstairs this year?
No, I not until you mentioned it. I was surprised. I did not know that.
I looked it on the app and I saw, wait a minute, there's a whole nother floor above for.
Was there always another floor? Or did they build
It wasn't last year. They had the new product, new exhibitors, first time exhibitors in the 6,000 range last year.
Yeah, because you could look up normally and you see the metal beams and all. I never saw another floor, but maybe
there's another. There's a second floor there, and there's a whole nother exhibit hall for the new first time exhibitors and everything. Yeah, I don't know how many, quite a few people there. So it looks like we've got running from upstairs to downstairs. Again, it's going to increase your time in between. Anyway, that's just a logistical challenge, but at supply side. And again, this is the first year we're calling it Supply Side Global, which I'm glad they changed the name, because it's always been an international show. And I actually have gotten into arguments with people saying, this is an international show. And they say, oh, no, it's not. They just thought it was U.S., right? But no, it's not. We have people coming from all over the world to this.
Anybody who really walks the entire show can see it is not. I mean, you have all kinds of booths from all these different countries in Asia. You get booths from Australia. You get booths from Europe. It's truly global.
Yep. So I think just want to leave you a couple key takeaways on the Accelerator 2.0. And so there's a Science Accelerator program for product brands, and there's one for ingredient companies. Okay. And I'm looking at bringing in 10 companies for the ingredient side. Maybe we extend that. We'll see if we can handle that. And then 5 other product brands. Okay. And we're already in discussion with a couple of product brands right now, as a matter of fact. So if you are interested in connecting with me at Supply Side Global next week in Las Vegas, shoot me a message, Dr. Bill at NutriSelect.ai, and we can connect there. But again, there's 2 different programs. And the cost is just a minimal administrative fee. It's nothing really, but you can be part of the future of evidence-based supplementation. You can help create the differentiation for consumers. You can help change this industry and move from a subjective science marketing hype industry to an objective science evidence-based supplement industry, which is what we have the goal.
That's what we want to do.
That's what we want to do.
That's our goal.
So let's wrap it up here, Gene. So what did you? So what do you think about? Again, we already kind of touched this, the East-West knowledge here, right? Because that's always been Yeah.
Yeah,
What's your
yeah. I think
thoughts on that?
so. My thoughts are: I think what I learned at the Timepie Longevity Summit was that there's a lot of stuff going on in our industry out here that coordinates nicely, overlaps nicely with what's happening in China. I think both China and the United States could learn a lot from each other by
Yeah.
seeing what the other is doing and expanding on that. And I think that what NutriSelect AI is about, I think there's good overlap there too. I think they mesh well together because, again, you're seeing a lot of evidence for very interesting nutraceuticals and techniques that I think, again,
Yeah.
meshes very nicely with NutriSelect AI. So, yeah, I think that a marriage of East and West makes a great deal of sense from a
Yeah.
product development and scientific advancement standpoint.
Yeah. And I think, look, a lot of tech development in AI is coming out of Asia as well. So,
It is.
and our tech partner, which by the way, you're going to see an announcement about that tomorrow, so stay tuned. But uh, I think it even makes more sense for us to go to China next with NutriSelect. The regulations are quite different, but again, there's quite a few products. There's a lot of products imported from the U.S. into China as well through, CBEC, which
Right.
is cross border e-commerce. CBEC, cross border e-commerce. If you don't know that term, that's what that stands for. Anyway, well, cool. So again, sounds like you had a great trip to China. I've never been. It's on my bucket list. So one of these days, I hope I get to go there. It's a huge country and there's lots to see there.
Oh, it's
Uh,
fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
I mean, I want to go see the Great Wall of China. I mean, that's on my
Yeah,
bucket
I,
list
didn't-
for
I didn't.
sure.
I didn't see that, but I saw. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was there and I saw something new and interesting every day.
Yeah. I'm sure you did. And then again, our next episode on the Bioactive Nexus is super, super exciting, guys. So please join us this Thursday. You'll see an announcement go out on that on Wednesday or Thursday. It's Thursday evening. We're going to have a Bioactive Breakdown episode. We have 3 special guests coming on, and we're going to demystify AI and personalized nutrition. So it's going to be very educational, especially if you want to get up to speed on that. We have like I said, a great panelist or guest coming on for that. So again, stay tuned for the notice on that. That's Thursday, I think, 8 p.m. Eastern, right? It's going to be late for you, Gene, I know, but we have folks joining from Hong Kong, which will be 8 a.m. the next morning. So on Friday morning. So we had to do that so we could do it live with everybody. But anyway, so don't forget about that. That's coming up on Thursday. And I think that's all I got to say. We're going to, and after we do that, Gene and I are going to be in Supply Side Global in Las Vegas next week.
That's right.
That's right. All right, folks. I'm going to take us out of here, Gene. If you got anything else to say, that I think we're good. And,
Yeah. No. Just check out the schedule
yeah.
on the website. I personally am going to be doing a
Oh, that's
biohacking
right.
longevity education session. It's a breakfast session on Wednesday, and you could just go to the website and look at how to sign up. And if you've bought the education package on Tuesday morning, I'll be part of a whole group discussing GLP-1. What's next?
Well, I don't get in time. I have a breakfast meeting already on Wednesday, so I won't be able to attend. But unfortunately, and then like I said, my schedule's pretty packed. And then, of course, we're meeting with. You're on the science advisory board for NutriSelect, but also Tim and Elijah are going to be there, and we're going to have a little powwow, the 4 of us.
That'll be good. Yeah,
that'll be on Thursday morning. But I get in Tuesday 6 something, p.m. So
yep.
anyway, that's I'm looking forward to it, man. It's going to be a lot of fun, exciting trip.
Absolutely.
All right, man. All right, let's take us out, and we'll see you guys again on Thursday.